protocols have become so strict with their inclusion-exclusion criteria. TikTok can be a good avenue to use, not just Facebook or TikTok. There are other things as well, Reddit, YouTube, maybe not so much, but it can work. Other ones, Snapchat. If companies want to actually improve their patient recruitment, you can do it in-house. That's really the best way to get it to work.
Welcome to Industry Voice. Today, I will be interviewing Ross Jackson, the author of the Amazon bestseller, a book called Patient Recruitment for Clinical Trials Using Facebook Ads. With over 10 years of experience in clinical trials, Ross has mastered an effective strategy for recruiting and retaining patients using social media. So let's find out how exactly can one recruit patients via social media. Ross, we are very pleased to have you in our project. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to start out by asking you to tell us a little more about yourself. How did you end up in the field of clinical research?
Sure. So I started off doing digital marketing. I started off way back in 1998, the same year that Google was founded. And from the outset, I had some doctors as patients, and I was recruiting patients for them. Doctors as clients, and I was recruiting patients for them. And I developed a healthcare niche in that field, and eventually morphed into more of clinical trials. So I was asked to recruit some patients for clinical trials. And that's basically how it happened. So I think a lot of people in the industry don't start out in clinical trials. They come in from somewhere else. And I'm the same. So I bring my marketing background into it and focus on patient recruitment and retention in the field.
And currently, who would be your clients?
Currently, it tends to be more of the biotech mid-sized CRO. Over the years, it's been a range. So it's been sites themselves, site networks, large pharma, so the big pharma companies as well, big CROs as well. I suppose most of my projects have come through CROs over the time, because they're the people who have the clinical trial projects usually. But certainly more recently, I've noticed the biotech firms are cutting out some of the CRO involvement, or using a smaller CRO. So yeah, I'd say currently it's a mixture of mostly mid-sized pharma, biotech, mid-sized CRO. But over the years, I've worked with one site owner right up to the biggest multinational pharma.
And thank you for sharing that. And now I want to go into more depth with clinical trials. It's a known fact that clinical trials often face recruitment challenges. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons, really. I mean, one of the biggest problems that always comes up about recruiting patients is awareness. So patients are not aware that the trials exist. It's funny that over the COVID pandemic, obviously the whole world was aware that clinical trials exist, but they didn't necessarily relate that to other conditions outside COVID. So again, I think people are not necessarily aware anymore that, or at the moment, that there is a trial for their condition. Access is another possibility, another big problem for recruitment, because usually, despite decentralized trials, most trials are run from a site, so multiple sites around the country often, but you would have to be nearby to a site to be able to get to it. So the access to the actual participation is a problem. I also think one of the biggest reasons is the trial design itself. Protocols have become so strict with their inclusion-exclusion criteria that it's often very difficult to find someone who would fit the criteria to participate in the trial. So those are the three main areas, and it's a perennial problem that for some reason hasn't been fixed yet.
Can you share with us some cases with unexpected enrollment statistics?
Yeah, not specifically statistics, but it's some stuff that unexpectedly happened. I was very surprised when I first saw some TikTok advertising for clinical trial recruitment. I was thinking that can't possibly work. This is about 2.5 years ago, maybe even longer. And it did work. And I thought, okay, that's very interesting. So TikTok can be a good avenue to use. So I assumed at the time as well that this would be for younger people on TikTok doing the dancing and whatever. But it actually emerged. I'm working with an organization quite closely at the moment, and they've done a lot of advertising on TikTok, Facebook, etc. And you can actually reach an older audience through TikTok, which again was a surprise to me. So unexpected results. Another one was an asthma trial I was working on, where we decided we'd have very swift follow-up from the people that filled in the online form. They would get a follow-up phone call to actually screen them before the trial, and actually following them up within 20 minutes led to I think it was an 89% conversion rate from pre-screening to attending the trial, whereas normally that would be a lot lower.
Very impressive.
That very swift follow-up worked very well. So I think that those are things that have percolated into my brain. I'm thinking, right, so TikTok can be used for things that you may not expect. Swift follow-up in certain circumstances for certain trials is a good idea as well.
And of course, we've been talking about digitalization in terms of clinical trials. What other tools other digital tools for patient recruitment exist? Which ones would you point out?
So digital tools so digital advertising is obviously a key thing. That's where my background is, and that's where I came into trials. I've expanded into doing a whole range of different things for recruitment, but digital advertising is, I would say, still a key element. It's always worth putting that into the mix for a patient recruitment campaign, and it's not just Facebook or TikTok. There are other things as well, Reddit, YouTube, maybe not so much, but it can work. Other ones, Snapchat, particularly good for younger people. So there's a range of different platforms. In terms of the actual tools, I would say that a patient recruitment platform is going to be very useful. This is basically where, most trials that recruit, a lot of trials that recruit don't even have a website, which is interesting. I don't understand why. They just send people to clinicaltrials.gov or similar website, and people just won't find it. So you should certainly have a website for the trial. On the site, if you have an application form where people can fill in their details, pre-screens them, you have relevant questions, so it will pre-screen them to be relevant for the trial. That data then, if it's goes into a patient recruitment platform, you can use that data in very sophisticated ways to target more people, make sure you're following up with the people, giving transparent access to the sponsors so they can see the stats and which advertising channels are working best, which sites are following up quickly, all that sort of thing. So for me, that's the digital advertising is a key factor, but the actual patient platform tool, the piece of software you use to get the information from the person who applies, that's another key factor.
And some of the sponsors, they don't want to hire specialized vendors for those kind of services, and they try to run their own Facebook ads, for instance, to enroll patients. What are some of the mistakes that they make?
Yeah, there's a range of mistakes. I think the two biggest mistakes I see that people making with Facebook ads or other digital ads really are, in Facebook ads particularly, you can use interest targeting. It's detailed targeting where you're targeting people's interests based on how they've behaved on Facebook and previously on the internet itself. So you can target people with that. And what people often assume is if they add 2 or 3 interests, say they go for health and wellness, fitness, diet, they assume it's narrowing the list down to people who have the health and wellness and the fitness and the diet interest. It isn't. It's all. So it's health and wellness or fitness or diet is what you're targeting when you look at that. So you're not really narrowing the audience. You're probably widening the audience there. So if you wanted to narrow it, you'd have to put and. So that's one mistake I see quite frequently if people are not familiar with how it works. The other one is just setting up ads and not doing anything with them. So they just put the ads live and then they don't monitor them, they don't change them. I suppose the third big one is just being very boring. So the creativity in the ads can be very boring. You often see like stethoscopes, doctors, things for clinical trial ads, and we've all seen them, and they can work, but there's more creative ways to get this working better. I would say though the biggest problem I've seen is people just putting the ads live and then not monitoring them or changing them and expecting them to work without this ongoing optimization.
And how can companies improve patient recruitment for their trials? Work with companies like yours, I suppose.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I would certainly indeed work with bring in specialists who know what they're doing. I think one of the things there is, like any industry, there are people who do it well, there are people who are good at it, there are people who can do it, and then there are people who don't do it well at all. So if companies want to actually improve their patient recruitment, you can do it in-house, but there are people who've been doing this for a long time, organizations out there. I'm working currently quite closely with a specialist firm called 1N Health, and they're very good at direct-to-patient, especially in the digital realm. So one of the reasons I'm working with them. So having people like that, having organizations like that come in. The other side of it is try and make sure your trial is fit for purpose. Try and make it aim for as many real people as possible. I often say that when you see some of the trial design protocols, they're designed to get someone who's about this tall and is made of glass, because basically they're designing for a test tube where they've managed to get this molecule to work. Whereas in the real world, people are not made of glass. They are actually people with multiple conditions, and you need to make sure your treatment is going to target as big a section of the population as possible.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think our audience will learn a lot from this. And moving on, Ross, so you literally wrote a book on patient recruitment. Can you tell us more about some of the core values this book is based on?
Yeah, it's the core values, the core principles behind it are based on my digital marketing experience combined with the clinical trials and the patient recruitment experience. So I think it's fundamentally about trying to, if you look at the way clinical trial recruitment has been done in the past, it's all based on the clinical, maybe the academic route to try and get people involved. So it's very traditionally done. It's about reaching out to sites, seeing who's on their database. Whereas if you bring in an element of customer experience, which comes from the digital marketing, that's really the best way to get it to work optimally, to get it actually to work better than it has been. The system does not work very well. I mean, it's well known statistics that 90% of trials don't recruit enough patients or don't recruit on time. Perhaps what's less well known is that even when people are recruited onto trials, at least 30%, maybe sometimes as high as 60% of people drop out. So retention is very difficult for trials. So I think this is where bringing that customer experience mindset into it will help to actually recruit the right people in the first place and keep them on the trial. And these are the principles that I brought into the book. I mean, because it is specifically about using Facebook ads, which is where I thought there's a niche here. There's a gap in this market. It's, it became an Amazon bestseller, but perhaps because it's the only book about recruiting patients using Facebook ads. But it's
no, because it's good.
Okay, I'll take that. Thank you. So being a book, it hasn't kept pace with the changes. So some of the changes that happened with Facebook, you will look at some of the examples I use, and they don't necessarily fit with the Facebook system as it is today. But this is where the core principles come in. The actual core principles are still very sound and very valid. I've had people reach out to me to say that they learned a lot about marketing in general just from reading the book, and how they can improve their own results based on the principles as much as the actual tactics.
And could you say that your book is an ultimate guide on how to run a successful media ad campaign for a clinical research site?
Yes, I'd say it's certainly a good foundation. like I say, some of the image I took screenshots, and some of them won't look exactly the same, but they're not that far removed. But if you do read it and you go and try and do your own, you'll be able to set up the ads and use that as the foundation for doing your own testing. This is one of the principles of the book. It's about testing. I mentioned before that one of the big mistakes people make is to set up ads and just leave them. Well, once you've set up the ads, that's only half the job. Then you have to keep checking them, changing them, switching them around, split testing them against each other. So yeah, if people get those things from the book, they will actually probably improve their performance, unless they're doing very well so far.
And on a closing note, I want to ask, so what's next? Are you involved in any exciting upcoming projects?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things I'm doing, I mean, like I say, I'm working with this One in Health, and that's very exciting because they're good digital direct to patient. So I'm doing a lot with them. I'm also continually talking to people in the industry who want to try and change things and make the whole process of patient recruitment and retention more effective and more efficient. So I'm always picking up ideas or chatting with people or trying to push that agenda. And that's always very exciting, because I think the idea of bringing in that customer experience to patient recruitment in clinical trials is actually going to help for everyone, because I think there are things changing with clinical trials, and things will develop, I think there is going to be different ways that people attend trials in the future. Decentralization hasn't become as widespread as people thought it might do. But I think, yeah, so long as there are people like myself and plenty of others in the industry who can work together to get things improved, getting the patient voice in at trial design, getting the site voice in at trial design, then that's very exciting stuff for me, and that's what I'm working towards and will continue to do.
I actually came up with one question which wasn't on the list, but I think it will be good to add it. We didn't pay much attention to the book itself. So okay. I think it's good to add just a general question. Ross, could you please tell us why you decided to write such a book and why you felt the need for such a book? And could you please describe it in your own words?
Okay, so yeah, I've been doing a lot of these digital ads and Facebook ads. Now, since then, I've kind of moved into more of a consultancy and strategic role. So I bring in lots of different tools. I work with not just digital ads, but doctor outreach, community outreach, all sorts of things that actually help with patient recruitment. But at the time, this is a few years ago, when I put this together, I realized every time I came across organizations who were running Facebook ads, they either weren't doing very well or they didn't understand it, and there was no real guide. There are online guides, and Facebook has its own, but good luck understanding most of those. So I thought, okay, with my expertise and my background in marketing and this niche in patient recruitment, I can put these two together, create this book. I mean, I have sold it on Amazon, but it's available for free in PDF format. You can download it on my website for free in a PDF format. So I just wanted to get the information out there so that people understood that, yes, you can actually use this. I came across so many people who weren't even using digital ads at all. And I thought, yeah, in order to recruit, this is the 21st century. This is quite useful. I'd say 50% plus of the patient recruitment activity I've seen has come from digital ads, maybe even 70% actually. So that's basically the reason behind it. It's based on these principles of combining marketing and patient experience to make sure that people can actually use the tools that are available to attract people into the clinical trial ecosystem effectively. So yeah, that's the reason I wrote it. The reason I thought that there was nothing I found. I put it together, and yeah, it's been quite interesting for me. It's helped put my name out there as well. That's another good thing that's happened on the back of it. So people realise that I'm I know what I'm talking about, which is good. And it's been useful. I think everyone I know who's bought it, who's got back in touch with me, or even downloaded it and got back in touch with me, has said they found it very handy and is very useful for their own purpose.
So thank you very much. That was very productive, and we want to wish you good luck with your upcoming and current projects. And thank you very much for such a great contribution to the clinical research landscape.
Thank you very much, Anna. That's great. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be our next guest speaker, reach out. You can find the right email in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe.